Good morning, everybody. Now we are moving on to our Coimbatore chapter event in Agile Network India's January session. And it is about how Merck as an enterprise leverages DSDM. And we have Nitya Subramaniam, who is the managing director of Merck Enterprise Private Limited, sharing her views with us. And before we move on to the wonderful session by Nitya, I would like to thank Innovation Roots, our founding sponsor, which is a leading consulting and training service provider and helping organizations to achieve business agility and beyond. And I would also like to thank Gile, which is a sponsor and a product offering from Tata Consultancy Services Limited, which is a purely cloud-based enterprise agile planning tool and having DevOps capabilities. You can log on to Agile Network India's sponsor page to find out details for both, and you can submit your inquiry forms for any details. And now, without any delay, I would like to call upon Nitya. Nitya, over to you, and looking forward to the session.
Yeah, thank you, Nupur. Yeah. So, hi everyone. So, I am Nitya with 16 years of experience in information technology space. I've earlier worked on Wipro, NEC India, and Campus Management Corporation prior to starting my own organization. At MIAC, we do consulting IT services and products. I lead the exploration and engineering teams of MIAC in delivering to our customers. So here today we would get to know what we do as MIAC in leveraging DSDM. So what we'll run through in today's session is why we chose DSDM, what are the significant benefits that we got in terms of better visibility, in terms of the choice we provide to our employees to do work with certain boundaries. Then we also would get to see how we structuring reviews so that there are no surprises as part of our end deliverables. How we are tying our performance in line with DSDM principles, and also how our communication on DSDM is made to our within our team. So it remains concise and it gets the job done. So before we go to why DSDM, so what did we have before? And we, in most organizations, we also continue to have these following challenges. So we have a number of roles in the organizations, whom we call them as technical architects, business analysts, user interface developers, testers, right? Now, we also have these kind of roles in our organizations. So some of them performing these roles for us. At times, it could also be the person who's leading these team members performing this role. So one of the role is being an expert of options. So when the customer comes with an issue, so there is always too many options which is put in front of the customer, more than what is required. So making it difficult to make the right judgment on time. The next one is the that happens in most of our projects is we try to over-engineer. So the customer had asked for a simple ring. Now to make him more excited, we start doing a gold plating. So over-engineering is otherwise known as gold plating. So we tend to spend a lot of time on that aspect. While the customer would have just been happier had we delivered on time the required product. The other thing that we have is that one hero approach. So someone tends to rise up to the situation and rest of us start clapping around, while all of them should really be focusing on getting things done, not turning one person red. The other thing that is a little different from the over-engineering scenario is that we have team members who get into analysis paralysis mode. So I've asked for a simple bar chart to be done. The team comes up with 10 options. So now I ask, where is that one implemented option, the one that we want to implement? They're still in the analysis phase. So it would have just taken 4 hours to implement something, and we have analyzed it for 3 days. So this is, and we have some 10 options done. So not quite the right place to get into analysis and get paralyzed for something that's very simple. The next is the priority anchor. So as an organization, it is my role to set priorities for the organization and sometimes for the team leads so that they prioritize their jobs for the team. Now, what happened? So one of the real situation we had in 2018 was we were doing an academic calendar project for some 14 universities. So one of the 14 universities came and asked for us to include a deviation for calendars. So they said if they have 200 colleges, they wanted 200 colleges to submit deviation on the defined calendar. Now, what I did was to check with my engineering team immediately. Is this something that we can get it done? How complex it is? The next thing I knew was the overexcited team spending time on getting it done. And in 2 days from when I had asked, they had come up with the UI. And in 2 weeks, they had come up with the complete system. Now, what I felt was this was not something we needed. It is a nice to have thing. Just because I asked a question, it got into a priority mode and got executed. So I had messed up the priority for the team by pushing something on an undue time, right? So handling the priorities right? That was missing at that time. Now, the other thing we had is we have team members who keep things safe. Like they've done the work, they're yet to deliver it because they're afraid of getting the next work too fast. The other kind of person we have is sometimes when we sign up for project just to get business, we overcommit on things. So then the team struggles to deliver it. The other situation, one other situation we have is the person who says, you know what, I've done everything possible with this team, and we're not going to be on time to the customer. So these are the challenges we have had as team, and to overcome this, we have to change our ways of working, and to do that, we chose DSDM framework. So we wanted to be in one of the agile frameworks, a proven model. We also were planning to get ISO and CMMI certified. That required us to be following standards. And we wanted something that's easy to communicate with lesser documentation and more focus on output. As startup, we do not have a lot of leverages to build a bigger quality framework. So we wanted something that is defined, proven to use. Now, DSDM is a model that has been in existence from 1994. It's an incremental and iterative and incremental model. It is applicable for both IT and non-IT projects. So we felt that it followed the Agile Manifesto, it mapped to it, and this is one of the right models for us to go with. Just to give an introduction to DSDM. So DSDM has 6 phases: pre-project, feasibility, and foundation phase. Post which we have the evolutionary development phase, which is time-boxed 4-week sprints. Then we have the deployment and post-project phases. Now, the other thing is, while Agile framework has 12 principles, DSDM came with its own set of 8 principles. Now, in a DSDM approach, what we differed was that we would always compromise on features, not on time, quality, and cost. So how do we compromise on features? Is by defining the right prioritization technique, on identifying which are must-have, should-haves, and could-haves. Now, with respect to the evolutionary development phase, DSDM allows us 3 models. After the feasibility and foundation, exploration gets conducted in sprint cycles, and then engineering gets conducted in next sprint cycles. So that's one model. The other model is there is a sprint cycle for exploration, then there is one for engineering. So the model that we followed had 2 teams, an exploration team and an engineering team. So the exploration sprint runs separately from the engineering sprint. So the exploration sprint allows definitions to be done before getting into the engineering sprint. So whatever is to be planned for an engineering sprint is planned in the exploration sprint itself. So there is no real variation or investigation that happens in the engineering sprint. The engineering sprint is like a factory. It gets the list of things to be done and delivers the stuff outside. While they will address technical analysis and technical challenges, there is nothing really too much investigative that gets into the engineering sprint. So this is the model that we felt is the best one for us to follow, having separate exploration and engineering sprints. Now, as part of DSDM time box, we have something called as a structured time box and a free format time box. While our exploration team is more of a structured time box, our engineering team is a free format time box where only iterative development repeatedly happens and there is no investigation or analysis happening during the engineering sprint. Now we'll discuss about the benefits that we obtained as an organization. So from exploration to engineering, the way we execute has changed from what we used to do. So we used to have a single board where we define everything to be done. Now we have 2 boards. One is the exploration board, which is not visible to the engineering team. So what is decided in the exploration board is then passed on to the engineering team. So in the exploration board, we define stories as per how it should be defined for DSDM. It is called as prioritized requirement list in DSDM. In Scrum and other agile methodologies, we tend to call them as backlogs. So these stories have a particular defined format which says, as a role, I need to be doing a particular activity in the system so that there is a particular benefit derived out of it. So that is the format the stories are defined. So stories get defined well and then moved into prioritized stories, which are the stuff, whatever is as a prioritized story is what is taken up for execution by the business analyst and the UI developers. Now, the UI development is itself part of the exploration sprint, where it is developed and signed off, and then it moves to the, it is defined as components in the exploration sprint. Now, these components are then taken up for prioritization on DSDM Moscow, which is the prioritization model, which defines that we should have 60% of must-haves, 20% of should and could haves. So the could haves are the ones that you can easily do away with, like you may not need to build in a particular sprint when you don't have enough time. So there is flexibility given in the sprint to keep away from certain items if you're overrunning, because your time box will have to deliver to the sprint, but even in that sprint we do have options of ignoring certain components to be delivered. Now, these components that are defined are then passed on to the development team, who act in 4 different phases. Like there is an item of to do, which is then moved to do today, in progress, and done. So the items are executed by the development team in the second board, which is the engineering team. Yeah. Now, we also track each of those components to the user guide level. So there is a better visibility for us from the time we start get into the exploration phase till we deliver, test it and put it into the user guide. Yeah. Earlier we used to have missed components and changed priorities. Like one of the examples that he gave, we would change priorities somewhere midway, maybe just a question triggers that. Now that doesn't happen. Until it is part of the board, nothing new gets done. So there is always a decided approach on what needs to be done. The next is earlier it is used to be that you when we provide task to teams, this is your task, you do it. So it's more like that, and also that it's at a storyboard level. Okay, this task needs to be done, define components and start doing it. Now it is since the exploration itself defines the components, all the engineering team has to do is choose components. And in a month, there are so many components to be built. The must-have or priority for us. And within that, the team has the ability to choose what they would like to do first. So it is they who come up with, okay, this month, these many screens are to be developed by me. I'm going to take these. So it is sometimes your fellow team member will help you reprioritize, saying I would need that done so that my screen would also get done. In most cases, it is team itself trying to judge on what they want to do and how they would want to accomplish their monthly goals. So that is set in your first sprint call. The sprint call in the morning is when they say, yes, this is what I would get done, and move that to-do list task to be done in the to-do list. So again, how do there is a freedom to choose, but they have to follow this prioritization principle, that they have to complete the must-haves before they take the should and could-haves. So teams are no longer identifying components to be built here. They're taking the components that are already defined and trying to prioritize. The next is a thing that we have implemented as part of our DSGM implementation is to have structured reviews. Now, for an exploration sprint, we structured our development in 3 phases. So when we do wireframes, process flows and wireframes, and pass it on to the UI development, which is the key output. The UIs are the key output to be given to the engineering team. So it gets executed in 3 different stages or states. The first is the draft state, the next is the refinement, and the third is the optimization state. So in this review, we get all the technical team as well as the customer involved, so that things are reviewed enough times before it is passed on to the development team. So this helps get more freezed, more optimized system for development. So any UI has to go through these 3 passes: draft, refinement, and optimization. And the mindset of the UI developer is also linked to this framework. So he knows that only when completion of these 3 frameworks, these 3 states, the UI is ready. So this makes it easier for us to introduce any change during the draft, refinement, and optimization phase. A UI developer does not get to think if he has designed one screen, it is done at that moment. He knows it has to pass through 3 reviews. This mindset allows for a lot of refinement and lot of optimization without upsetting the UI developer, who thinks his job gets done when the screen is done once. Otherwise, so because we've set this model, now it's more easier for the UI person. So this is the tracker where we move from wireframe to draft, refinement, and optimization. The next thing we have are like to tend to cut down a lot of things getting lost during development, we try to maintain as far as possible a common tracker. So all front-end validations, we tend to keep it in one place, and it gets done prior to the engineering sprint by the UI developers, reducing the effort and time required for engineering and helping them focus on the core logic. Yeah. So now, prior we had UI engineering team complaining to us saying, okay, I just did the screen, it is changing. Now they know as part of the role, they have to do it, they have to change it 3 times before it is finalized. So that is one of the benefits of having structured reviews. The next is the engineering sprint. So again, in an engineering sprint, we have 3 stages: code, review, and release. Earlier, we used to just code, have it released for testing. Now, the review process itself involves technical architect, process architect, and the testing member. So even before it is released, whatever is coded is reviewed once. So any minor changes or a missing information icon, those things gets identified and fixed in the code, and then it is released. So there are the number of bugs that gets as an output of release, right? When we have released it, we have seen that 50% of defect gets cut down because we had an earlier review. So that's the change that we have done for the engineering sprint. Also, having in the defining things in exploration sprint and the technical architect getting involved in exploration sprint itself has made it easier for us to define components earlier on. So the architect is also able to define what is required for the system upfront, reducing the need for the architect to be involved on every single thing that the technical team is involved in on a daily basis. So the architect is also able to define upfront what is required for the sprint. So this is an example of a monthly sprint tracker, wherein for a month we define so many 160 hours or so is available for a person, and then that is planned for each complaint level. Now, for each complaint level, the duration in hours is planned. The team gets to update, okay, these are the dates they are getting to work on this particular sprint item. Once that is done, there are also 3 levels of reviews, right? So all tester, technical, and functional review. So all of those reviews are done, and then the component is completed. The next thing we have is on the performance space. So what we have done is to follow the DSGM principles, where delivery on time, develop iteratively, so never compromise on quality. We've looked into the DSGM principles and taken these statements and elaborated this for compliance in our performance. So we've chosen, of the 8, we've chosen the 4 different things that we would want to check with our team members regularly. So delivery on time is one of those DSGM principles in which we check, okay, have you delivered for the sprint on time? Have you addressed must have plus should have requirements as well? Even if could have is not addressed, it's fine. So we score the team on a monthly basis. So this is a monthly rating that's given. Earlier we used to have a 6-month performance cycle. Now the performance cycle is month-wise, and for every month, every person is rated on this by their manager. And there are only 4 different items they rate. Earlier, we used to have a complex rating scheme, like having come from organizations which run a detailed KPA, KRA list. We also try to do something which we had learned earlier on. in a larger documentation and record for every 6 months. Then we have moved to a 1 month sprint where we monitor performance in such a way that we monitor only 4 parameters every month, and basis that their performance gets determined. So one of the activity we have is, as a project, 50 marks goes to have we planned, have we delivered on time. So you can see there are I've included sprint 2 different team groups here to show an example. So an associate score 30 means their sprint has not been so well. An associate score of 49.5 means that particular project sprint went really well. Then that's the sprint performance for the team, which is scored for 50 marks. Then there are other 5 points which are scored for another 50 marks, which are around individuals. As an individual, how did you perform? So delivery on time, quality, change. Did they conduct a learning session as part of the month? So the learning session can be for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, but have they conducted the learning session? And did they learn? Did they participate in the learning session conducted by others? So that is also accounted for in the learnings in the learning point. Then we have thing around collaborating continuously and clarifying anything that they need to do. So these are the 4 different things that we rate the team on. And then the one thing that we also gave is initiatives as recognized by the manager. If they did something special, we wanted to have a scoring area for it. So we introduced this initiatives as a additional line item that we could score on. And the scoring item actually, when you rate it at 50%, it impacts their performance score. So their salary tends to vary from 80 to 100%. So somebody rated at 64% might get 82% percentage of their salaries. So the performance is directly impacted based on what their score is here. And the scores are not really discussed with the employees. It is based on the outcome of the sprint. So they really know what has happened in the sprint. And email is sent out on this is the score based on the deliverables they've done. So they sort of know what they have achieved for that month. And we don't wait for a 6-month feedback to wait 6 months for a feedback to be given. So they get immediate feedback and they can take corrective actions for the next month. So we still have yearly appraisals, so that has not changed for us, but that monthly feedback happens. And also every month best performing people are recognized by awards. Earlier we used to give within the office share awards in front of everyone. Nowadays we send Amazon gift cards when people tend to work from home. This is how we do team performance and rate people on what they did for that month. The other thing we do is concise communication on DSDM. So having again worked in very process and quality oriented organizations, I did come with a background of having seen huge quality manuals. Now, when you're doing a startup, you don't really spare a team for quality management. So the option that we have is to see how best we can communicate DSDM within lesser documentation, and how do we make them follow. So we might not have a quality team which runs a practice to follow the software development life cycle. So we have to do it within limited time with not much resources. So what we did was to put it on our doors. So all of what DSDM says is put into 2 sheets. The first sheet defines the sprint cycles. What are the deliverables during the sprint cycle? The second sheet defines the responsibility accountability matrix. So it says who is to be consulted, who is to be informed, who takes the work and who is accountable for that activity. So that is defined in the board, and it's for everyone to see every single day. And whenever there's an argument over who should have done what, we ask them to just go refer the door and solve it. Yeah. So, what is there is just a little blowed up version of that is what you see here. Yeah. Now, going forward, what we also want to do is to bring in better sprint cycles for UI teams. So by better sprint cycles, meaning if it is 160 hours in a month, if it is an engineering team, we are able to clearly define 160 hours in a month on what would be the outcome. But exploration, being the nature of work it is, we are able to define at story level, and we don't seem to be getting it 100% right. So we want to attempt better sprint cycles for UI teams. And even if it's an exploration team, we are able to define the tasks to be done in a more granular fashion. The other thing that we wanted to do is something we learned from retail. So where a retail salesperson receives every morning report on how much sales he had done yesterday, so that today she's encouraged to do more. So how is he scaling up in a month? So there is a morning report sent to him for a salesperson. So this practice is from one of the retail consultants. So same thing we want to replicate for our sprints, to say, okay, this is your 160 hours of planned work for the month. At what level are you today? So were you stuck yesterday, that is slowing down your work, or are you able to stick to the timelines that's being planned? So I believe giving them more visibility on a daily basis encourages them to act for that particular day. So this is all about DSDM. So then we've used DSDM to implement several projects at MIA, and I can actually share with you what we are and what are some of the projects that we've implemented. So before that, if there are questions, I would like to take.
Hi Nitya, thank you for an amazing session. And we have a couple of questions for you and would like to hear more on it from you. So let me just scroll up to the questions. Okay, so, oh my God, there are a lot. Let me just scroll up. So the first question that I see is, can you elaborate anchor priority?
Sorry, can I elaborate?
Can you elaborate anchor priority?
Anchor priority. Okay. So see, that is one of the words that are actually used. It's not part of the DSDM model. When I was describing the challenges, I told that there is one person within the organization who changes priority for you. So the person who's to be setting the priorities right, actually by probably by just asking a simple question on can this be done, excites the team to do it. So instead of working on the must-have things, we end up working on nice-to-haves, and hence changing the priority. So the priority anchor did not, the person who is supposed to be leading the priority did not do the job well. And I've used an example of academic calendar to discuss that, wherein by just asking a question, I had misled the team to do something that was not so important to be done.
All right, Nitya. Nitya, we have a couple of questions by Atul. Atul, we'll try to cover as much as we can, as we have questions from other participants as well. So taking one more question of Atul is, what are the roles and responsibilities of process architect?
Okay. So the work that is defined for business analyst, right? So a senior business analyst is actually a process architect. So now we define it as process architect because we do believe that they help design the system more than just analyze given requirements. They also get involved in designing the system and ensuring that they also have the understanding of the back end and processes involved in development to set things running. So we define the term process architect for the exploration team head. So it's an internal definition within our organization. DSDM actually talks about exploration and engineering sprint.
All right. Thank you for sharing that, Nitya. And there's next question by Gopal. He's asking, the 160-hour seemed all new activity planning with no allowance for defect handling. Can this really happen?
The 160 hours is not a full allowance, right? So if you calculate 8 into 21 days, right? So you do have a slightly larger number coming up. 8 into we have 22 working days in a month with a couple of days planned for leave for each member. So even the leave is in the leave plan of the employees are incorporated in leave in our planning. So when also to differ a little bit, when I started the organization, I also did think of women who were not able to take up full-time jobs, and they were able to contribute 4 to 6 hours of their time to work. And this also meant that while a lot of startup encourages people to work day and night, there are people who want to work but cannot stretch themselves, needed an avenue to work as well. So we do have team members who work for 6 hours per day, 4 hours per day, and we plan their effort accordingly. So with scope for defect fixes as well. So the way we have defined sprint itself, only the first 2 weeks of a month is development. Third week is you need to be giving a first release, and the fourth week is you'll have to fix all the bugs that are available in the third week and have a release, a cleaner release by end of fourth week. So our development really gets done first week 1 and week 2, while week 3 and week 4 are lot of cleaning of the existing screen that was quickly developed. So it's really a 4-week sprint with last 2 weeks really meant for 50% work and 50% on bugs and cleaning. Yeah.
All right, Nitya. So moving on to next question by Dhiren. He's asking, what other agile methods or frameworks did you try before DSDM?
Okay, so basis my work earlier in other organizations, we worked on Scrum in quite a bit of projects, but I've also been trained on extreme programming and other methodologies, but didn't quite get to work on such projects where pair programming is allowed and all that. So Scrum is what I would have tried in number of projects.
All right. And Dhiren is having another question, that who scores the performance?
If it is exploration team, it's the process architect. If it is the engineering team, it's the technical architect. There is the project coordinator who assembles this data and ensures this gets done. The actual scoring is done by the architects that we have. So we don't really have a strong project management role, or we don't intend to have it as well. We just have a project coordinator who gets to assemble stuff, track progress, make reports, not drive the team. It is the architects, process architect and technical architect who gets to drive the team.
Yeah, all right, Nitya. So there is one question by Dhiren and Atul of similar nature. So
Yeah.
maybe we can answer it together. So Dhiren is asking, did you face challenges when moving to DSDM? And there's another question of similar nature. What challenges at enterprise level you as Agile coach faced before implementing this exploratory and engineering sprint approach, and how you as a Agile coach changed the senior management mindset before implementing this model? So maybe you can answer these two questions together.
Yeah. So now with respect to within here, like within my current organization, I don't have to convince anyone because I'm leading the organization here. But in my earlier roles, I did have the while we were doing Scrum practices, we did have quite a bit of convincing to do. And the other factor that we have is the customer involvement is also crucial for us because we worked on some point in time. So the Scrum practices that we did for one of the retail clients, like it should be around 10 to 10 years from the time I'm speaking. So those days our quality team would drive the fact that we want to do agile way of working and have the customer convinced first, and then we within our team we'll have the execution of agile. Now again, if the customer is open and while the methodology are explained by experts and all that, we are able to shift to agile. Otherwise, we'll have to go with the waterfall or iterative development model, whichever the client intends to agree to move forward with. So that's one stage of work. But here, having had the opportunity to lead the organization, I don't really have the convincing need with customers. It's really the teams who get into the system. Now, the challenges that we face here, say the technical architect doesn't want to score on performance of anyone. He says my work is technical, gets done, that's it. Same is a process architect. I've been a business analyst. I never led teams, right? Why would I score for a UI developer, who is now part of my team? So these were challenges that we came up with. But then what we felt was for a startup to run project management team separately, who takes stock of things, and primarily we didn't find a higher value getting derived out of a very senior project manager existing in the team. So we had multiple sessions and discussions with the technical architect and business analyst who were to take up these roles, and eventually convinced them it is just that there are 5 points and they have to mark against these 5 points. They have to do nothing more every month. So anyway, it gives them the opportunity to give the comment they want to give to the developer without waiting. So now they own up to those team members as well. So when we started off, we were facing the challenge, but we no longer face it. So the team also knows a technical architect is someone they report into, and they get to do what the architect asks without really having to say, you know what, I cannot do that analysis now. So those things are no longer existing in our team. Yeah.
Yeah, great to know about this, Nitya. And we have, I think, 7 to 6 more minutes in hand, and we'll try to answer 2-3 questions in that. The next question is whether you created user stories, spikes as research work just for exploration team on top of development user stories for development team for same functionality, as it seems anti-agile pattern.
So we only have one user stories getting created in the exploration team. So we don't, in the exploration team, there is a user story which says, as a user role, I would want to achieve certain things in the system to be able to deliver a benefit. So this is the only user story that gets defined. This defined user story is then converted into screens, components, and logic for execution within, and that happens within the exploration team itself, because the UI person is involved in the exploration team where the split happens. Now we then take this component list and give it to the engineering team. So there is no separate user story for the engineering team to execute. It is derived from the exploration team only. And there is only one storyboard for us.
All right, Nitya. Moving on to our next question by Atul again. He is asking, exploration sprint is conducted only when needed, or is there any other way of doing it?
So we have two teams, the exploration team and engineering team in every project. They're always there. So the exploration team's work is to define UI interfaces for the next sprint of the engineering project. Also we found that if there were certain additional bandwidth we had with the exploration team, so we introduced that the exploration team can also take up UI validation. So there are UI developers within our team who define the UI. So the front end part of the validations can be done by them, because there is we felt there was enough time for the exploration team after they have generated the required user interfaces. So we try to engage them by moving certain effort of engineering team to the exploration team in a fashion that everyone is comfortable with. So that's, did I answer the question?
Yeah, I hope you
Yes,
have answered the question, Atul.
yes, I got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Nitya. We can take one or two questions quickly in the next 4 to 3 minutes. Let me just move up to the next question. It's about dependencies. So dependencies, anticipated risk spikes as in research work is already managed in elaboration sprint, so that the user stories are directly in actionable mode in engineering sprint.
Yes. Yeah. So all dependencies, also the technical design is mostly cleared off in exploration sprint. The last 2 weeks of the exploration sprint, technical architect is actively involved to be able to even check for any technical challenges that might need things to be addressed before it gets to the engineering. So engineering is more like a factory model. Yeah. So you have defined steps of things to do. You define, you get those things done in engineering, and you step out with the product.
Okay. So next question is about synchronization between exploration team and engineering team occurs. How does it occur? And in refinement sessions or any other ceremony?
Yeah. So in UI, we have 3 stages: draft, refinement, and optimization. So while the draft is done internally, like within the process team itself, and not involving anyone from exploration team, refinement and the optimization team, the technical architect of the team, engineering team is involved. Now, the optimization team, we also give the chance for the technical architect to, during the optimization, we give the chance for the technical architect to say things like, the screen would impact performance. No, this design is wrong if it is going to touch database so many times. So we change the designs, get it cleared by a customer at that point in time. So the technical architect is engaged, and sometimes if the technical architect is not available, then we get one technical lead from his team to participate for the session.
Okay, all right, Nitya. In the next 1 minute, let's see if we can get the answer of how defects are reduced by 50% in this model.
Okay, so what we did were, we did 2 different things. One is our front-end validations moved to the phase before. So in the UI design phase only, we have moved the front-end validations. So if a text box is supposed to have only numbers, that validation gets done. If it is a for a particular text date box, the date should start from a particular date. So those validation gets done upfront. which means they are before we deliver to the engineering team as part of exploration team only. During our reviews, we might have checked those and closed it. So those kind of defects will no longer come as an output of an engineering team's effort. The second place that we are doing in the engineering team itself is, in engineering, before they release the code, we ask them to do reviews. Now, the reviews are done in any order. Like, there are 3 people who can do reviews: the tester, the process architect, and the technical architect. They at least have to complete 2 reviews before they release it, and they can do it in any order, so that they're not really bogged down by, oh, this person is not available, after this review I have to go to another review. So we have removed that hindrance of being having a process to do that review with these 3 members. They can do it anytime, as long as they're managing to complete 2 reviews of a particular component, they're ready for release. Now, in this reviews, what we find is that we might even have had requirement misses, or probably the developer itself says, this one, this particular thing I'm not able to understand, which means the end user will also not be able to understand. And we need to introduce an information icon or a help text to it. So we do that in the review process, which means even having the process architect also involved in that review of the technical work before it's released lets us know the changes to be done in that particular space. Even if it's a requirement defect, we find that out. So getting validation to the previous, like the exploration sprint. Second thing is having reviews in the engineering sprint before the release of the sprint. So the reviews usually happen in the 3rd week, and 4th week the system is made final. So we these 2 things actually enable us to cut down defects.
All right, thank you, Nitya. With that, we come to the end of this session. Thank you very much for being with us and sharing your experiences with us. I'm sure the participants have got a lot of insights, and we were able to answer their questions with you. Thank you, everybody, for such wonderful question. And thank you again, Nitya. It was wonderful having you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.